Hi guys, welcome once again to Otto's Garage. If you recall, we were having a look at the lines to run inside the cabin, and one of the guys on the YouTube dropped me a message just saying just be careful of that because he won't meet the FIA standard using the rubber tube. Now, although I'm not building it to FIA, so rally car standard, it is to hill climb, and of course that got me thinking. So I had a quick look at the regs for hill climb, and quite rightly, we can't use the rubber tube in the car, and we've got to go to either a metal tube or a like air-equipped kind of reinforced PTFE kind of tube on that. That got me thinking, and being in the building trade as I am, what I managed to find in the old stock sheet was this stuff. And this is basically the same pipe that we would use for transporting oil. So we've got a metal hard pipe and it's plastic wrapped. So that's going to give it a bit of protection immediately. And the other thing that I do like about it as well is that it's all basically got EN numbers on it, and you know it says exactly what it is on the tin. So I'm hoping that that's going to be good enough. Well, it will be good enough because it's metal at the end of the day. But what we've got to do is we've got to convert the copper tube with a compression fitting. You've got to use compression fittings on it to a AN fitting. So that will be done in the boot area and in the engine bay area. And then basically kind of, you know, from this point onwards, that'll go through the cabin, and then we'll convert back to the AN fittings at the engine end. And that should, it will meet the regulations. That's ideal. So I haven't had to make a purchase on that. Got it off the shelf. Happy days. Okay, so I've fitted some of that heating oil pipe into the car now, and you can see there how basically where it comes up through the bulkhead up to where the AN fittings are over there, we've got solid metal pipe, which is what the regulation says. In this instance it's copper with the protective covering on it, and I've clipped that down. Although this is a 10mm pipe, it's actually got a mil of plastic each side of it, so it's ending up as about just over, slightly over 12mm external, and these are 13mm rubber pipe clips, which I've just basically riveted down with a 4.8 rivet, 5mm hole through the floor, and away she goes, and that's really secured it nicely. I've tried to tuck it in here as well, so that's kind of protecting it. So if anything inside the car falls down there, she's got a nice bit of protection on that, where that chassis member goes across. And then basically we fold it round and she heads off towards the front of the car there, and then disappears up under the dash. I'll show you where that's coming out on the other side. And here on the engine side, you can just see where it's coming through that bulkhead there. Now what I'm going to have to do obviously is seal this hole up. So it's just got the pipe coming through it, and I may well do that just with a little aluminium plate with a rubber grommet in the middle of it. I'll see what's occurring on that. This pipe will probably be cut short. At the moment she's a bit too long, but I'd rather that. At least we're into the engine bay now, so somewhere around about here we'll probably cut it, and then we'll go back to the AN hose, which obviously is flexible, and then that can go off somewhere here to where the fuel injection is joined. But the goal at the moment is just get the hard lines into the engine bay, and then we can make those connections up afterwards once the engine's in position with the AN6. I'm going to do something similar on the other side for the return, so it'll come off the back of the pressure regulator in flexible AN, and then over in that far corner there we'll connect up to the copper pipe, and then we'll go back down again the driver's side sill and back to the compartment at the back for the fuel tank return. On the return line, what I've done is I've started from the back So that's my copper coil there, and you can see down there where she's disappearing down the original channel there under that chassis kind of reinforcing plate there. So I've fed it in from the back, which I've looking at it is the simplest way, and then on this side you can see where she comes through. So this is the original, the first one that I put in, which is the feed. And that's the pipe that goes across over to the other side. So I've fed this one through loose at the moment, and then we're just going to follow that sill line down again all the way along, and then she's going to go up in underneath and pop through a hole. So let me just show you at the front, and that comes through the bulkhead on this side. So again, what I'll do is, we've just got her quite long at the moment. And then we'll make the union down here on top of this bulkhead, somewhere like that, and change from the copper to the AN6 flexible, and then off to the regulator. So I'll get a couple of clips on that now, and we'll see what she looks like. So where the hard line comes through, I've terminated it there with a compression fitting, which changes from the 10mm copper, and you can just see the copper in there, down to the AN6 hose fitting. So what I've got to do now is I'll just do the same on that one that's just poking up there. That's the feed. And then basically we can pop the swirl pot back in place over here, and then just work out how long the return from the end of the copper return pipe is into the swirl pot, which I think is this one if I remember rightly. So I've just got to make a short little bit of AN hose going downhill, and then it'll connect onto the end of that one over there. I'm just going to show you what's involved in that. This is the fitting that we need to use. So it's basically, you can see it's got the AN hose fitting on the one end of it, and then on the back side of it, it's got the fitting that goes over the copper pipe. So just inside that, I just whip the end of that off, you can see off your bugger. Right, you can see in there, it's made of 3 parts. So you've got the sleeve, which goes over the pipe, and then you've got this little fella here, which is an olive. So it's exactly the same as a plumbing olive that you might find on domestic hot water systems, or cold, or even in this instance, oil. And then basically, this has got like a little recess in it, and the olive goes in this end to it. And basically when you tighten the nut up, it crushes the olive around the pipe and makes the seal. So that's got to go over there. What you have to do is just trim the plastic back, which I've done in that instance. The sleeve goes over first, and that comes back out of the way. Then the olive goes over it, and then you can put the AN adapter and the two screw together. It's a little bit fiddly in there because of course we haven't got a lot of space, and we're trying to just, I don't even know if I'd get both hands in there at the same time, to be honest. Right, you can feel the thread take anyway. What you just got to be careful is that you don't cross thread stuff on these, because they are quite delicate fittings. But that's tightened up there nicely now. And then what I'll need to do is then just get a pair of spanners on that and tweak that firm. And then that'll be that done, ready for the AN hose to go on the other end. Just one other thing, because these are a American derived system, these AN fittings, these basically are 11/16. So rather than being metric, they've got imperial. So 11/16 fittings on that AN6 or -6, whatever you want to call it, fitting. Okay, so I've finally got it done. So you can see there the hard lines coming through into the connector, and then we've basically got our AN hose coming up to the swirl pot. So all of those connections are done now. The feed, that's the filter there. Filter on that, and then that drops down again to the hard line and away to the front of the car. Pumps all mounted up, and what I've done as well on both the pump and the swirl pot, we've mounted these on rubber mat. Just try and insulate that because they're going to make a little bit of noise, and on this boot I think that'll be quite drummy. Filter here, again I've mounted that on a bit of rubber mat, and that goes into the bottom of the tank. And then you've got your two fittings up the top there. This one is the return from the swirl pot, and this is the breather. So the breather basically is just sucking in ambient air, that's not pumped at all, and that goes through a one-way valve. So basically you can't have any fuel coming out. It can only go, air can only go in, but nothing can come out this way. And then I've just popped the breather down into the chassis rail down there. The only other thing that I've got to do now is I've got a fitting that's got to go on the top of the pump out of the swirl pot. That's on its way, and then it's basically electrics, as we said before. So that's pretty cool. And I've still got to modify that neck on the tank, but that's by the by. But yeah, I'm pretty pleased with that. We'll just have a look at those hard lines inside anyway. So you can see there, that's the hard lines coming through from the bulkhead, and that's the fitting at the back there onto the AM. And then I've got the P-clips going round, so that's the feed going to the front of the car. And then on the other side we've got the return, and that comes down through the P-clips and back to the tank. And I've tried to get the all the P-clips and everything mirrored, so on both sides we're using the same distance. So we're trying to keep it neat. But I like that hose, that's really good stuff. You know, it's well protected with the plastic on it, and it looks good as well. So yeah, happy days on that. Well, we got those lines in nicely, and what do you know, we're going to be taking them out again. So they're running down the side of the car here, and my mate Mark suggested that perhaps they should be running down the tranny tunnel for regulation purposes. So I had a look at the regs, and in the blue book it says they should be protected. That's the only word they use. They don't say how, but in any event, I had a word with a friendly scrutineer, Andy, and he basically suggested that they perhaps should be running down the middle of the car, so that in the event of side impact we don't get a fractured fuel line. Now they are inside the cage there, and some of the lads, they run them between the cage and the outside of the shell, and I can kind of see where that's coming from, because you'd pinch the fuel line if you had a crash. But in any event, with them being hard lines, I suppose if I did get a hit in here into the sill, then, you know, into a tree or something, it could push them out and fracture them. And safety is the name of the game. So what we're going to do is we're going to take them off the sill, and we're going to reroute them across from that back corner, and then get them into the centre of the car, and then run them down the side here, and then they'll go up through the bulkhead. So first thing to do is drill out some of those rivets and get her pulled back and realigned. So you remember the bar that we're going to put in across the back of that tank? Well, just at the stage now where we're actually going to make that up. So what I've got is a bit of 25mm box. We've got a bit of flat on the end of it. We've drilled a couple of holes in there each side, and basically what we'll do is we'll weld that on there now. I think she is just slightly long at the moment, so once we've got that welded on, we can check the overall dimension, and we'll just trim that end off down there afterwards. So let's get that welded up, and we'll see what we've got. And there it is. So we've welded that tag at that end. I double checked the width of it, and then we've put one up on the other end here as well. So that now needs, we'll just offer her up in the car and just see what she's like, and then we can get some paint on it. So in the car, it's perfect. So we're gonna have to bolt fix it into the arch at each end, and then basically there she will go. So that's good. So I just need to get that painted now, and we'll be away. Okay, so I've just hung that up from there. We're just going to give that a little bit of paint and see what she's like. just with the old, let's just open that wider a bit for you. There we go. Just with the rattle can. And the colour's not Lancia 210, but we don't really mind about that because it's going to be buried in the back of the boot, so that's fine. Just trying to get a bit on each corner as well. Yeah, and as with all these, just trying to build up a couple of layers on it, and then we'll give it a top coat when that's gone off. Handbrake. So I've just left the hydraulic handbrake out for the moment. I'm not convinced about the necessity of it. Obviously with hill climbing, it's just not going to need it at all. But I do need that MOT, and I have got to have a mechanical handbrake for that. So what I'm thinking is we'll leave the hydraulic out for the moment. We'll get the bare essentials done. We'll get the mechanical handbrake in. That's the cable system that was there. And then at a later date, we can fiddle around and get the hydraulic in as and when we need it. So with that in mind, we have basically refitted the existing. I've obviously refinished all of the gold parts there. And we've had a handbrake cable come through from the floor. And then that's the original handbrake itself. So that is basically in its final resting place like that. You can also see alongside there those repositioned fuel lines that we had to go down the tunnel with, and underneath there I've got a couple of bulkhead fittings, so I've just got to connect up the ends of those. I need a couple of 10mm olives though, because we've got to have some compression fittings there where we've extended the pipes. So that's for another day. Underneath, we'll go to the back. So we basically got the handbrake is just hanging down there at the moment. That's going to have to be secured, but it comes through the loop onto the back arm up here, and then basically she drops into the caliper. I can't get the final adjustment done on that at the moment because basically I need some fluid in the system, and a couple of the lads on the group there have basically suggested that I get all the hydraulics up and done, and then mess around with adjusting the handbrake up to it afterwards, because it's got to push the pistons out hydraulically first, and then just the last little bit with the handbrake. And at the moment, it's not doing it. It's just it doesn't got enough throw to reach all the way through. So I've kind of just left that at the moment till we get the hydraulics in, and then we can adjust the handbrake manually. You know, so we'll just see how we go with that one. Okay, the other thing you'll notice is I've taken the dash back out again. That was actually only in there for that show anyway, and obviously we have got a bit of work to do to the dash. But the next thing I'm kind of looking at is down there is the brake pedals, and again I'm not entirely convinced about the location of those, because obviously with the seat we've kind of gone back a little bit. You can see the new bar there in relation to this is kind of the original hole, seat mounting hole, and obviously we've thrown everything back a little bit, and the steering comes back as well, which is great for balance, you know, weight bias. But it does give us a problem that unless I'm going to go and get an operation on my legs and get them extended, might have trouble meeting those pedals down there. So I'm kind of looking at another option on the pedals, really, whether to do away with the factory ones and get a pedal box in instead. So that's something that's up in the air at the moment, I should say. So a bit of a catch up there. I'm still waiting for bearings on the engine, so we can't finish that. I'm waiting for some olives for the fuel line, so I can't finish those. I need the fuel tank modified, so I can't get that finalised. Yeah, there's a whole load of stuff that we can't finish, but we're still plugging away at stuff. I'll just keep you up to date, and we'll just see how we get on with it all. But at the moment, I'm going to say goodbye. Thanks for watching Otto's Garage. Catch you on the next episode. Cheers. Bye bye.